it's hard to put into words. I just try to give it everything. So
Now, what I'm about to read to y'all is something that they say ain't never happened before in the NFL in its full existence, bro. That is a team having to replace all 5 offensive linemen.
An explosive piece of audio just leaked out of Cleveland, and the entire football world is staring at it like someone dropped a live microphone in the midleaf of the locker room. According to the recording, a Browns lineman was heard making a shocking statement about Shedeur Sanders, wishing harm on the quarterback during a play on the field. Let that sink in for a moment. Not criticism, not frustration about a missed block, but a comment so reckless that it instantly lit up social media like a stadium scoreboard in prime time. Fans everywhere are asking the same question right now. Music. How does something like this even come out of a teammate's mouth? This situation is not just messy. It is straight up embarrassing for the organization. People are furious, and many are already calling for the league to step in and investigate the entire situation. Some supporters are even demanding suspensions for everyone involved in the conversation. When audio like this hits the internet, it spreads faster than a kickoff return. And suddenly, the Cleveland locker room is under the brightest spotlight imaginable. Music, and here's the wild part. The situation surrounding Shedeur Sanders was already chaotic before this recording surfaced. The Browns' offensive line situation looked like someone shuffled a full deck of cards and threw them on the table. Every starting position changed. Every protector in front of the quarterback rotated out, and the entire unit looked completely different from week to week. For a young quarterback trying to settle into the NFL.
Swing and a miss.
Look at this,
just hadn't
bro.
worked out. Sanders fires and
Dart
across midfield. And underneath it's Sampson. And Dylan Sampson running through Sanders fires for the end zone. Open! Leaping up and grab.
To 10. Sanders looking deep. He's got Bond out there. Drops. 8. Bears bring pressure. Sanders throwing. Looking for Bond. Over the middle. Drops it in. The speed.
Time in the red zone. Off the boot. Sanders connects with
tight ends here on second down.
Look at it.
In trouble. Now steps back. Get away.
Like
it. Got it. Complete at the 15.
That kind of instability is like trying to run a complex offense during an earthquake. Every snap matters. Every block matters. And every tiny mistake can flip a drive upside down. But the environment around Shedeur started to feel less like normal growing pains and more like something seriously off-balance. When fans went back and watched the tape, they started noticing moments that made them raise their eyebrows. Missed assignments, confusing protection calls, strange breakdowns, and key moments. People began asking if this was just bad football music, or if something deeper was going on behind the scenes. Now look, football fans know the game is messy. Linemen miss blocks sometimes. Quarterbacks get pressured. That happens every Sunday across the league, but the pattern in Cleveland started looking strange enough that people could not ignore it anymore. Pocket collapses happening instantly. Handoffs getting disrupted. Timing roads falling apart at the worst possible moments. It almost felt like every time Shedeur Sanders tried to get momentum going, something unexpected would break down right in front of him. Imagine being the quarterback in that situation. You drop back to throw, expecting protection, and suddenly defenders are closing in from 3 directions like a blitz package from another planet. Yet somehow, even with that chaos swirling around him, Shedeur kept doing the one thing elite quarterbacks always do. He kept competing. And that is where the story flips from frustration to pure respect. Because even when everything around him looked unstable, Shedeur Sanders refused to fold. Instead of panicking, he started adapting. Instead of pointing fingers, he started reading the chaos and adjusting his decisions in real time. That is not easy for a rookie quarterback in the National Football League. That is advanced level composure. Second round pick will be at number 39.
Second round pick will be at number 39. So they will be entering at number 39. Now the Browns have a total of 10 draft picks in the 2026 NFL draft, including 2 first round picks, which are damn good picks, as well as their own picks in the 2nd through 5th round. And who do they got? Matt Miller predicts that a linebacker.
While critics were throwing out hot takes and anonymous whispers about whether he was ready, Shedeur kept stepping back into the pocket, scanning the field, and delivering throws that kept drives alive. Imagine taking music hit after hit, knowing protection might break down again, and still standing tall to deliver a pass right on target. That takes serious confidence and mental toughness. The narrative around him started changing right in front of everyone's eyes. Analysts who originally questioned him suddenly had to acknowledge the numbers. Music fans who doubted him started seeing the flashes. Tight window throws started landing perfectly between defenders. Third downs that looked impossible suddenly turned into chain-moving completions. Instead of shrinking under pressure, Shedeur Sanders started rising above it. Every time he converted a tough play, it felt like he was answering critics without saying a single word. Music, the more obstacles appeared, the sharper he looked. But the drama surrounding this situation did not stop with broken plays or locker room tension. Some observers began saying the criticism surrounding Shedeur had crossed a line. Music, the tone of certain comments both inside and outside the building carried undertones that made people uncomfortable. In professional sports, competition is expected, hard coaching is expected, but personal attacks, that is where the line gets drawn. And once the conversation shifted in that direction, the pressure on Cleveland's leadership to step in became impossible to ignore. That is when offensive coordinator Todd Monken stepped into the spotlight and started making moves that shook the entire structure of the offense. Instead of patching small holes, he decided to flip the entire music table. The offensive line was rebuilt from the ground up. Every single protection spot got reevaluated, every blocker reconsidered, and suddenly the unit in front of Shedeur Sanders looked completely different. That was not just a football decision. That was a music message, a very loud one. Monken made it clear that the franchise quarterback was not going to be left exposed while internal chaos swirled around him. Fans noticed immediately. Analysts noticed immediately. The vibe around the offense shift.
It should be noted, Mary Kay, meanwhile, is saying that even though Zion Johnson has spent the last 3 years as the left guard for the Chargers, that doesn't automatically mean Joe Bitonio's time is ended here in Cleveland with his big decision coming up. The Browns still waiting to find out whether Joe will play in 2026.
Yeah, I mean, Zion started as a right guard. It's funny, even like in his Wikipedia, though, it talks about him switching back and forth, and it's like, so he moved to left guard, and he's much better there. And it's like, it's odd. He wasn't bad as a right guard, though. He really wasn't. He wasn't bad. I'm not really holding out much hope for Joe Bitonio, but Mary Kay says that his decision isn't made yet, so that's all right.
I mean, listen, if you can say Joe Bitonio does come back, and you've got Zion Johnson, that puts Howard is your right tackle. Luke Whippler would likely be your center then.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you sign anybody else in free agency to be even a left tackle, then you really have a chance to kind of freewheel it in the draft. But even if the worst thing we can say is you've got to find a left tackle in the draft, that's easier than, and then don't forget you also have to find a center, right tackle, right guard, all the different ways you can do this.
Well, and I mean, we got to figure out where DeJuan Jones fits in that equation as well. And so, like, there's a lot of different things that they can end up doing. Let's put it that way.
I think using Shedeur was threading passes through tight coverage like a surgeon with a laser pointer. Music reads that once looked risky suddenly looked effortless. Defensive backs who thought they had perfect coverage found themselves turning around just in time to see the ball land exactly where music it needed to be. That is what happens when a talented quarterback finally gets the support he needs. But what made this turnaround even more fascinating was the contrast with the earlier chaos. Fans could clearly see how different the offense looked once the blocking stabilized, and the play design actually worked together with the quarterback's strengths. Instead of scrambling every other snap, Shedeur Sanders was calmly stepping up in the pocket, scanning the field, and delivering throws that kept chains moving. That kind of composure spreads through an entire offense. Receivers run routes with more confidence. Running backs hit holes faster. The whole team starts believing the drive is going to work, and while the on-field turnaround was impressive, the drama behind the scenes was still swirling like a storm cloud. Music reports about tension in the building kept surfacing. Rumors of locker room disagreements, questionable lineup decisions, and strange offensive setups continued feeding speculation among fans. Whether every rumor was accurate or not, one thing was crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders kept producing no matter what chaos surrounded him. That is what made his performance stand out even more. Music. Imagine stepping onto the field knowing the environment around you has been unstable for weeks. Imagine hearing constant criticism from analysts, whispers from insiders, and headlines questioning whether you belong. That kind of noise can crush confidence for most players. Music. But instead of shrinking under that spotlight, Shedeur kept stepping into it. He kept making throws that forced critics to pause and take a second look. Even when the pressure came flying in, he kept adapting. Quick pivots in the pocket, sudden side steps to avoid defenders. Passes fired downfield while defenders closed in. Those are the moments where quarterbacks either panic or prove they belong in the league. And again, Shedeur Sanders delivered the answer. The more the situation around him stirred controversy, the sharper he seemed to play. Drives continued moving. Chains kept shifting. Defensive coordinators began realizing that no matter how chaotic.
Good situation. I think Zion Johnson made a lot of sense, right? Make a commitment to a first-round pedigree. Still 26. He's played as athletic and has only missed 2 games in his career.
Yeah.
So now you get into the older guys. It's risky. You still had to make commitments to them, but it's what you had to do. So again, we'll see where it goes. But in terms of just sensible using money to fill holes that you created, then they're on that track, and we're waiting to see what happens in the receiver room and the quarterback room.
I think it's important too to note that they're trying to fix the middle of the line too. I think that's an area where, Shedeur does no quarterback doesn't, including Shedeur, who is a pocket passer, right? You don't want pressure up the middle. It makes things very, very challenging for a guy who wants to be able to sit back there and diagnose. I mean, you have to move, and he can move a little bit, but he's not the most mobile guy in the world. So it's important for them to do that. I think that they're doing that, and we'll see what happens on the outside of tackle.
Yeah, I think using
Things looked early on. Music, the quarterback at the center of it all, was not backing down. Meanwhile, the local media coverage in Cleveland started looking like a full-blown circus. Debate shows, radio segments, the quarterback at the center of it all was not backing down. Meanwhile, the local media coverage in Cleveland started looking like a full-blown circus. Debate shows, radio segments, social media threads. Everyone had a theory about what was happening inside the Browns organization. Some blamed coaching strategy. Others pointed fingers at roster construction, and some simply watched the games and said the obvious truth out loud. The quarterback was performing despite everything swirling around him. When a player keeps producing under that kind of pressure, the conversation eventually changes. Music, doubt turns into curiosity. Curiosity turns into respect. And that is exactly what began happening as the season unfolded. What made this entire situation even more frustrating for fans was how the story kept getting twisted by the local coverage. Instead of calling out the players who were clearly struggling in protection or asking serious questions about the earlier coaching decisions, a lot of the spotlight somehow landed on Shedeur Sanders himself. Think about that for a second. The quarterback who was fighting through constant pressure, keeping drives alive, and carrying the offense on his shoulders was suddenly being framed like he was the one causing the chaos. How does that even make sense? The guy battling through the storm somehow became the headline problem, while the breakdowns happening right in front of him barely got mentioned. That had fans shaking their heads all over Cleveland. Supporters watching the games could see exactly what was happening. When people replayed the clips, slowed down the protection schemes, and looked at the blocking assignments, the pattern became obvious. Music, yet, the mainstream narrative kept spinning in circles. Instead of highlighting the protection issues or the confusing rotations along the line, some commentators kept pointing fingers at the quarterback that left fans wondering if anyone behind those microphones was actually watching the same game. Because on the field, Shedeur Sanders kept delivering throws under pressure that most quarterbacks would struggle to attempt. The frustration grew louder as the weeks went on. Fans on social media were breaking down film, music, pointing out missed blocks, and asking why the offense looked completely different whenever protection improved even slightly. Meanwhile, some analysts continued repeating the same tired talking points about whether the quarterback was ready or prepared. That disconnect between what fans saw and what the commentary suggested made the entire conversation feel upside down when the evidence is sitting right there on game tape. Ignoring it only makes the situation look even stranger. And that is exactly why someone like Todd Monken eventually had to step in and bring some real direction to the situation. Monken did not just make tiny adjustments or shuffle a couple of names around. He went straight to the heart of the issue and started rebuilding the protection unit with purpose. Players who were not fitting the system were moved out. New combinations were tested. The offensive structure in front of Shedeur Sanders was redesigned to actually function the way a professional line should. That was not just a tweak. That was a full reset. Moves like that send a powerful message through an organization. It tells everyone in the building that performance matters and accountability matters even more. When a coaching staff shows that level of commitment to protecting its quarterback, the entire locker room feels the shift instantly. Suddenly, every blocker understands the assignment clearly. Every player knows the expectation, and most importantly, the quarterback, music, finally gets the stability needed to run the offense the way it was meant to operate. Once that reset took place, the strategy for Cleveland started becoming crystal clear. The franchise was no longer trying to patch problems week by week. They were building around their quarterback. Moving forward, that means every roster decision, every draft conversation, and every player evaluation begins with one question. Does this help Shedeur Sanders succeed? And when you look at the upcoming draft capital the Browns hold, that strategy becomes even more important. Cleveland has 10 draft picks, including 2 selections in the first round. That is serious firepower for reshaping a roster. With that kind of opportunity, the front office cannot afford to miss. Every decision needs to strengthen the foundation around their quarterback. Think about what that means in practical terms. Offensive linemen who can protect consistently become top priorities. Skilled players who can stretch the field and create separation become valuable targets. Even defensive picks matter because a strong defense gives the offense better field position and more chances to control the tempo of the game. When an organization truly commits to building around its quarterback, the ripple effects touch every part of the roster. Cleveland now has a chance to turn all the earlier chaos into a long-term advantage. If they use those picks wisely, they can surround Shedeur Sanders with the kind of support system that allows elite quarterbacks to thrive. But missing that opportunity would be a massive mistake because in today's NFL, a talented quarterback with the right roster around him can keep a franchise competitive for years. And that is why the message inside the building seems to be shifting toward clarity. The days of confusion and instability are supposed to be over. The goal now is simple. Build a team that functions together and gives the quarterback the tools he needs to lead effectively. That does not mean one player controls every decision. Of course, football is still the ultimate team sport. But when a quarterback proves he can deliver under pressure, leadership naturally starts shaping the roster around his strengths. Coaches design plays that fit his style. Receivers learn his timing. Linemen understand how he moves inside the pocket. That kind of alignment changes everything. Instead of fighting against chaos, the offense starts moving with rhythm. Instead of guessing what might happen on the next snap, players start trusting the system and each other. And once that trust builds, something powerful happens on the field. Drives become smoother. Communication improves. The entire offense begins operating like a unit instead of a collection of individuals. That is the path Cleveland is trying to create now, a roster that supports its quarterback, a strategy that values stability, and a locker room focused on moving forward instead of repeating the mistakes of the past. This moment feels like the beginning of something completely different in Cleveland. Not a minor adjustment. Not a temporary spark, but the foundation of a brand new era built around Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback who has already proven he can carry the weight of the franchise. When an organization finally recognizes where its true strength lies, every move starts sending a clear message across the locker room and the entire league. When an organization finally recognizes where its true strength lies, every move starts sending a clear message across the locker room and the entire league. Support the leader or step aside. That message is starting to echo loudly inside the Browns building right now. The roster decisions, the coaching direction, and even the culture around the team are shifting toward one simple goal: building the best possible environment for their quarterback to thrive. One area where that shift is especially important is the receiver room. For far too long, the situation there has looked chaotic, inconsistent, and sometimes completely out of sync with the quarterback's rhythm. Routes breaking late, timing missing by inches, and drives losing momentum because the connection simply was not there. But now the organization appears ready to confront those problems directly instead of pretending they do not exist. Young talents like Isaiah Bond represent a fresh opportunity for Cleveland's offense to grow in the right direction. Bond is hungry, energetic, and fighting for every chance to prove himself on the field. When a young receiver gets the opportunity to develop alongside a quarterback who trusts him, that connection can turn into something special very quickly. At the same time, the team must evaluate whether certain pieces from the previous system still fit the direction the franchise is moving toward. Music. Players such as Jerry Jeudy have been part of earlier offensive plans that never quite found consistent rhythm with a quarterback. Football is a results business. And when timing between a quarterback and receiver does not click, organizations eventually have to ask difficult questions about the future. Every missed route, every moment where the connection looks off, every drive that stalls because the timing is not there. Those moments start adding up over the course of a season. The Browns now face a crucial decision about what kind of roster they want moving forward. If the goal is truly to build around Shedeur Sanders, then every receiver, every blocker, and every offensive piece must be aligned with that vision. Championship teams are not built with half commitments or mismatched systems. They're built with players who understand the quarterback's rhythm, trust his reads, and execute the offense with full confidence. Trust his reads, and execute the offense with full confidence. That means Cleveland cannot afford to carry lingering instability from earlier seasons. The organization has already shown a willingness to make bold moves when necessary. And that approach may continue as the roster evolves because trying to build a championship-caliber team while carrying pieces that do not fit the system is like trying to run a fast offense with a broken clock. Everything slows down, and the entire structure loses rhythm. Instead, the Browns appear focused on constructing an offense that flows smoothly around their quarterback's strengths. Receivers who run sharp routes, tight ends who understand spacing, and backs who can contribute in both the running and passing game. When every part of the offense works together, the quarterback gains the freedom to operate at his best. And that is exactly the type of environment where Shedeur Sanders can shine brightest. We have already seen flashes of what he can do under pressure, stepping up in the pocket, delivering precise throws, and keeping drives alive even when things around him looked unstable. Imagine what happens when that same quarterback operates behind stable protection with receivers who are fully synchronized with his timing. That is why this moment feels like the true beginning of the Shedeur Sanders era in Cleveland. A reset where talent, strategy, and commitment finally take priority over confusion and instability. The message from leadership is becoming clearer with every move. The team will be built around the quarterback, who has already proven he can lead it forward. That focus will shape everything moving ahead. Draft selections will be evaluated through the lens of how they support the offense. Free agency moves will aim to strengthen the roster around the quarterback's strengths. Even the culture inside the locker room will revolve around unity, accountability, and a shared mission. No distractions, no lingering chaos, no uncertainty about the direction of the franchise. Every receiver, every tight end, every offensive weapon must now align with a quarterback guiding the offense. Because when a team truly commits to its leader, the results can transform the entire organization. And for fans watching this transformation unfold, this is bigger than just another football storyline. It feels like the start of a movement inside the franchise. A moment where Cleveland finally decides to build with purpose instead of patching problems week after week. The energy is changing, the strategy is sharpening, and the entire league is starting to notice because Shedeur Sanders is not just navigating the chaos anymore. He is rising above it and taking control of the narrative. Every drive, every throw, every moment on the field is showing exactly why the Browns are placing their future in his hands. And if you want to catch every explosive moment of every moment on the field is showing exactly why the Browns are placing their future in his hands. And if you want to catch every explosive moment of the Shedeur Sanders revolution, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash that like right now. The next chapter in Cleveland football is just getting music started, and it is going to be unforgettable.